Today we'll be covering an introduction into Python and taking a look at basic and fundamental concepts that we need to learn before we can start coding. So before we start, let's discuss what is Python. Python is the world's most popular programming language. It is very compact and uses less lines of code than other comparable coding languages. It is also very similar to English, so someone who doesn't even know coding or Python can look at your code and understand what the gist of what it does. Also, Python has numerous applications, including automation and artificial intelligence. So before we jump right into coding, we have to understand the different object types in Python. There are 4 main object types: numbers, strings, lists, and dictionaries. And inside of numbers, we have 2 subcategories. We have integers, or whole numbers, and it's shortened in the form of int. And we have floats, which are decimals, such as 3.14. And then strings, we denote them with a double quote or a single quote. And a shortened form to strings is str. And strings are basically any collection of letters or numbers or both. Lists, on the other hand, very similar to grocery lists that you use when you go shopping. Lists are a collection of items. So it can be a collection of strings, floats, integers, or a mix of all 3. Dictionaries are basically the same as the ones that we use when we want to look up the definition of something. In the dictionaries that we use, we have a term and a definition. In Python, we refer to them as a key and a value. If you look down at my example right here, we have food as a key, and we have the value as spam. So I guess in this dictionary, what we're trying to do is we're having some kind of food or some example of something, and then we're giving an example of that. So we have food, an example of that is spam, and then we have taste, an example of that is yum. So variables. So in Snap, we use variables to save things like pi, so we didn't have to type out 3.1415 every single time. But variables can be used for much more. We can think of variables as like a box or a container that we can store something in, and then use that container and pull whatever is inside out of it later in our program so it's undamaged or completely intact. So in Python, very similarly to Snap, we use variables and we can store anything we want inside of them. So here we have an integer stored inside of it. We have a string. Here we have a list full of strings. And then in var name 4 or variable 4, we have a dictionary. Another concept that we're going to review from Snap is input. So input is basically any type of like sensing or something from the user. So it can come in the form of like a key press, an answer to a question, or a mouse position. And the way we use these inputs is we use them with maybe if statements or while loops. So in Snap, what we did is we would ask a question like, what is your name? And then whatever the user would give, like let's say my name was Bob, the name Bob would be stored in the variable answer so we could use it later. Similarly, in Python, we declare a variable that we're going to store the answer in, and then we ask for an input. So in this example here, I ask, what grade are you in? And whatever the user answers will be stored in this variable grade. Another concept that we did not have in Snap is print. So in Snap, we had the turtle that would talk back to us when we'd ask a question or say something. In Python, we have to specifically denote when we wanted to print something. And that is done by typing print and then putting whatever you want to print inside of parentheses. So let's get started coding. And download Python idle. You go to python.org and you download it from this link right here. I already have it on my computer, so I will be accessing it directly. So let's open it up, Python idle. You're going to be greeted by the Python shell. And this is similarly to the stage on Snap. This is where all the output happens, or this is where you see your code run. But to code in Python officially, we need to press File and open a new file. And this is where we're going to start coding for our Python. We're going to code in Python. And this on the shell is where we're going to see our results of our coding. So let's try something. Let's print hello. And notice how I put the quotes around hello, because it is a string. If we didn't put the quotes, it would consider hello to be a variable, and it would give me a error. So let's run it. Oh, you have to save it first. So let's call this Python 1. So now that I ran it, it's saying name hello is not defined. And that is because the computer is thinking hello is a variable. So that's why it's very important to denote your strings with the double quotes or a single quote. So now if I run it again, it worked. It printed hello. So we were looking at collecting an input and then printing it out. So in my example right here, we asked for grades. So let's pull this out. So let's make this bigger. Let's ask for an input. So let's ask, we're going to make name equals input. And then name is going to be the variable where we store their answer. And then we're going to take an input by asking, what is your name? Don't forget to close with the quotes on your string and with the parentheses. And the next line, we're going to print their name. So we're going to print out the variable name. So let's run this. Save. So it's asking right here, what is your name? So I'm going to type in Bob. And as you can see, it printed our name, Bob. So let's go back to our PowerPoint. So now that we saw how we can use we can collect an input and print it, let's see. We have an exercise here that we can try. The exercise here is saying grade equals input. What grade are you in? So we're going to collect what grade the user is in. And then we are being asked here to print it in two ways. It is saying you are in is a string. And one time we use the plus symbol, plus grade. Another time we're going to use comma grade. So let's take a look. Let's try that. So let's take an input. Let's comment this out. And you can comment your code out by pressing Alt-3. Never delete your code. Always comment it out by pressing Alt-3. It's very important. So let's do grade equals input, because we're collecting an input. Grade is going to be the variable where we store the answer. What grade are you in? Close it. Then let's print you are in grade, close string, comma, grade, close parentheses. Then we're going to print you are in grade, close string, plus grade. So now let's run this. Let's see. What do these do? It's going to ask what grade I'm in. I am in first grade. So it is saying you are in grade space 1. And then the second line is saying you are in grade 1. So as you can see, we have learned that the comma automatically gives us a space, while a plus just adds it on to the end. And you could actually remedy this by putting a space at the end of your string, and now both will look the same. However, I personally use the comma more often because I need spacing a lot when I'm coding in Python. So let's go back. So here I have the questions. Can you spot the difference in the two print statements? Yeah. The plus just adds it to the end of the string, while the comma automatically puts a space. Converting data types. So when we collect an input, actually the variable that collects the input will store it as a string. So hence we're going to see here when we collect the grade, what grade are you in? When we print grade 2 times grade, we're going to see a difference when we print 2 times the integer version of grade. We need to convert the variable grade into an integer to do math with it before we can. Otherwise, it'll just consider it as a string. So the way we convert data types from one to another is putting the variable and then putting the shortened form of whatever we're trying to convert it to. So str, and then we put it inside the variable. If we want to convert to an integer, we type in int parentheses variable close parentheses. To convert it to a float, we put a variable and then we put in inside of float parentheses. So right here, I have an example where we're going to print. So let's comment this out. We're going to print 2 times grade. Then I'm going to print out 2 times the integer of grade, or grade converted to an integer. So let's run this. Run module. So it's going to ask what grade I'm in. I am in 2nd grade now. So now when we multiplied 2, we should have gotten 4. But when we printed grade 2 times, or when we multiplied by 2, it just printed it twice. But when we converted to an integer, it actually did the correct math because the variable became an integer and we were able to do math. Previously, it was a string, so we just basically printed the string twice. So it is very important when you're collecting an input and you want to do math with it. You have to make sure you convert it to an integer. So in Snap, or even in school, in 1st grade, we learn about addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. We have the exact same operators in Python. We also have true and false. We also have a random operator in Python. One new thing that Python has that many other programming languages don't, such as Snap, is remainder. If you use percentage, it'll give you the remainder. So if let's say you do the division problem, 10 divided by 3, but you use the percentage symbol, it'll give you the answer. It'll give you the answer 1. And when is this useful? This is useful when you're trying to test if something is an even number. If you do number percentage 2 and it equals 0, then you know it is an even number. If a number percentage 2 gives you 1, then you know it is an odd number. And then also in Python, you can do exponents by 2 multiplication symbols or 2 asterisks. Additionally, we have other things. We have comparisons in Python. So in Python, when we're comparing 2 things to be equal, we have to use 2 equal symbols, because if only one equal symbol means you are defining something, such as a variable. So when we're comparing 2 things, we need an equal sign. If we want to check if something is not equal to, we use an exclamation mark equal to. And then we have the crocodile, or the less than or greater thans, to check for values or 2 different numbers, to compare 2 different numbers. In Snap, we also use this concept called if and else. Similarly, in Python, we can use if to check something, and if and logical operators. So here in this sample program here, I have grade equals input, what grade are you in? So we're collecting what grade they are in. And then we are converting grade to an integer. So then if the integer of grade is less than 12, we are going to say you are still in school, because that means they are still in either in elementary, middle, or high school. If their grade is greater than 12, we're going to say you are not in school. And if is the same, means else if. And then if it's none of those, if they don't even give us a number at all, we know it's invalid. So we're going to tell them that's not possible. That's not even a grade. You might not even be alive. So here we have our first challenge. Use input statements to collect a user's age. We're going to calculate their age in 2030 and then tell them in 10 years you will be. So let's see. Let's open up Python and let's comment all this out. Alt 3. Let's move on. So let's name our variable where we're going to store the user's age. So age equals input. What is your age? So then we want to calculate their age in 10 years. So then we have to first convert age to an integer. So we can do age equals integer of age. By making a variable equal to itself, but in a slightly modified form, we are updating the value of the variable. So we're changing it from a string to an integer, basically, in this case. So now we're going to print out, we're actually going to add 10 years to it. So we're going to do age equals age plus 10. And here's a fun little trick that you can use if you want a little shortcut. You don't need to write it like that. You can do age plus equals 10. That is the same as age equals age plus 10. Then we're going to print age. We're going to print out your age in 10 years will be, make sure to close off the string with the double quotes, comma, age. And then just to add some little fun, we're gonna add okay boomer. Close up parentheses. So let's run this. So if the computer is asking me, what is your age? And I'm gonna put in 21. In 10, oh, I had a typo there, but in 10 years, you'll be 31. Okay, boomer. So as you can see, we collected an age or an input, and then we converted that age to an integer. And then we took the age and we added 10 to it, 10 years onto it. And then we printed the string, you in 10 years, you will be. And then we printed the variable age. And then we have okay boomer. So let's move on to the next challenge. So now the next challenge is similar to the last one, where we collect the user's age. However, we're going to use if and else statements to test what their age is and then give them a customized message. So if they are under 18, we're going to say, sorry, your break is over. And this is being recorded currently during winter break. And then if they are between 19 and 64, you should say, you have work tomorrow. And then if they are over 65, we say, hi, grandpa. Or if you want, you can put your own custom message. So similar to the old program, we're going to keep all of this except for the last two lines because we don't need to add to their age this time. And now we're going to use if statements. So we're going to do if age equals two equal signs because we are comparing two numbers. Actually, we're going to need to use the less than or equal to 18, then colon, and everything inside the if statement will be indented. So what happens if they're under 18? We say we're going to print you have school tomorrow. But what if else if their age is less than 65, but they're also older than 18, we have to say you have work tomorrow. And then else if their age is greater than 65, we print out hi, grandpa. And then we're going to put an else statement just in case if they're trying to fool around with us and don't even give us an age. We're going to say, let's say they put in a letter. We're going to print, bro, you're dead. So let's test our program out. So it's going to ask, what is my age? My age is 12. So it's going to say you have school tomorrow. Now, let's test it with another number. Let's try 32. Now it's going to say you have work tomorrow. But then now let's try my age is 100. Bro, you're dead? Oh, we made a mistake here by putting the wrong sign. We were saying we have to change that, so let's try this. Now let's run it again. I made the mistake of putting less than instead of greater than. So let's try 100 again. Hi, Grandpa. And then the last case that we want to test for is if I'm messing around and I just put a bunch of random characters and it gave me an error. So let's try one more time. Oh, it'll give us an error actually because we are trying to convert all these letters into an integer, which is not actually possible. So it's going to throw you an error. So let's move on to the next challenge. So what is our next challenge? Our next challenge is the login system. So what are the instructions? The instructions are create a program that collects a user's username and password. If both the credentials are correct, say access granted. Otherwise, say you do not have permission. So first we probably have to define what is our password and what is our username. So let's comment all this out. Friendly reminder, just use Alt-3. So let's start this new program down here. So we first have to define our username. So I'm going to make my username cool dude. And then I'm going to make my password equal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's an easy one. Everyone can remember that. And now we're going to make it similar to this login form that we have right here. So we're going to ask for their username or email in the case of Pinterest, and then ask for their password. So the way we do this is we have to take an input, user. Let's make the user name collected equals input username colon space close off, and then let's collect password collected equals input password colon space. Then after we collect their username and password, we got to check if these are correct. So if user name equals username collected and the password equals two equals because we're comparing things again, password collected, then we print access granted. Otherwise, else if username equals username collected and password does not equal password collected, we will print right user but wrong pass. And then else we're going to print access denied because they clearly don't have any business on this password login system. They're not approved to use this. So let's run this. So it's going to ask for my username. My username is cool dude. It's going to ask for my password now. My password is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Not my actual password. You can try it on my email. So let's enter. So looks like I have an error here. It says your name not defined. This is where usually you're going to get your info for what the error is. And it looks like I made an error in, let's see, user. Looks like I forgot an S. So let's run that again. Cool dude. Let's run that again. My password is 12345. It says access granted. But any good programmer should always run their program and as different people for all the different people that it is made for. So now let's put in the right username, cool dude. But then let's put in the password. So it says I put in the wrong password. So it says right user but wrong pass. Very good. So now it's gonna say let's run it one more time and let's put in the wrong username. Let's say I put a number as a username and I put cool dude as my password. It said access denied. So very good. So now we have a working login system where you can log in, where only the right people who are approved for this system can log in. So let's go back to our next challenge. Convert Fahrenheit to Celsius. Use input statements to collect a temperature in Fahrenheit. Then return that temperature in Celsius degrees. And down here, we have the formula where Fahrenheit minus 32 times 5 nines equals the temperature in Celsius. So let's skip this one. This one, I will have the solutions posted on the website. And if you need any help, you can contact me at Rayyan@learnersdome.org. So, next concept. Random in Python. So, as humans, when you try to choose something randomly, we usually have some sort of bias, or we typically don't end up doing something randomly. However, computers do a very good job, and if we want to use the random module in Python, we have to first import it. So when we want to import something, we always put it at the top of our document. So here we're importing random, and the syntax to generate a random number from this random module is random. We're calling the module name, and then we're looking for a random integer between 0 and 15. So this syntax, the first number is going to give you the number to start from, and B, or the second number, is going to be where to stop at. So in the range between 0 and 15, we're going to generate a random number, and we're going to store it in this variable called answer. So we have another concept in Python called time. So similar to how we have time in our real world, we can use time in Python to do many various things, such as time.sleep. Time.sleep can be used to pause a program or put a break in a program for a certain number of seconds. So let's say we take an input of two numbers and we were going to give the user the sum of those two numbers. We can put some time, we can put time.sleep 3 seconds to make it seem like, oh, it's loading and the computer is taking some time to compute the sum of these two numbers. So, and the syntax for this is just time.sleep, and then you put the number of seconds inside the parentheses. So here is our number guessing game. This is another challenge. And what we're doing here is every time the program is started, the computer generates a random number between 1 and 15, and we make sure the number is set to a variable. We let the user guess the number. If the guess is too low, if the guess is below, we say too low. If the guess is too high, we say too high. If the guess is correct, we say perfect. And don't forget to set the generated number and user's guess to a variable. So let's do that as an example. So again, all three. And let's do this. So let's reset our shell because it's getting kind of messy. So Python shell. So we're going to first, let's go to the top of our document. Let's import random. And while we're at it, let's import time. So what we got to do is we got to generate an answer. So answer equals random int random integer 0 to 15 close parentheses. Now that we have the answer, while we're testing the game, we want to know the answer. And then when we put it out for people to use, we'll remove that line. But for now, we're going to print out the answer so we know what it is each time. So just to show it works, let's run the module. So first time, the answer is 11. Let's run it again. Hopefully it'll be different. It's 9. So now we have our answer. Now we're going to ask for guesses. So guess equals input, take a guess, 0 to 15. Now we have, I have to close off my string. Now we're going to test if the guess is equivalent to, or less than or more than what we want for our answer. So if guess equals our answer, we are going to print perfect. Print perfect. But else if guess is less than answer, we want to print too low. Else if guess is greater than answer, print too high. And then we actually forgot to convert guess to an integer. So you have to make guess equals integer of guess. So the reason we use else if instead of else in this case is because we have 3 different scenarios. And once you use else in a chain, the computer will check these 2 and then it'll move down to these 2. So we use else if to make a continuous chain of checking multiple things before it moves on to the next one. So let's run this and see if it works. So let's guess 12. So it's too low. But in a game, usually we don't only have one chance. We'll have multiple guesses or multiple chances to guess. So this is where we can actually introduce a loop. And the way we do this is we can use a while loop that goes on forever, while true. And the way we're gonna put all of this into the loop by using control parentheses, square brackets. So now that we're by indenting this, we are indicating all of this is inside of the while true loop. So let's run this. So it says take a guess. So I'm gonna guess 5. It's gonna guess say too high. I'm gonna guess 4, too high. I'm gonna guess 1, 2, too high. I'm gonna guess 0. It's gonna say too low. So now I'm gonna put 1. It says perfect, I've won the game, but here's an issue. It's still asking me to continue guessing. And I can still continue guessing. But we want it to stop when we win the game. So the way we do that is we're going to tell the computer to break the loop. We're going to put the word break, and the computer will break the loop once we have won. And then we can even put a message saying you have won the game. So outside of the loop, by not indenting it, we're putting this outside of the loop. We can print you won. And since the computer runs code from top to bottom, it'll run it. So once we have exited this loop by breaking it, it'll print you have won. So let's run it one more time. And I'm going to put 5, too low. Let's try 10, too high, very good. Now let's try 9. Perfect, you won. And it exited. You can see that because it has gone to the next, it's ready to start another program. So let's go back and see what our next challenge is. Our last challenge for this set is word jumble. So, and what we're going to do in word jumble is we're going to give them similar to this example right here, we're going to give them a bunch of letters scrambled, and we're going to tell them the user to unjumble the word. If the user guesses correctly, we'll give them 1 point, and then we're going to ask them for 5 words. We're going to do this 5 times. And then to end, we're going to tell them what their score is out of 5. So here's my example to the right. And the way I want this to be done is similar to this. I want it to be, I have an example of this done a little bit more on a more advanced level. If it'll load. Let's take a look. So let's run this. This is my version of it. However, this is a little bit more advanced because I'm using HTML. So the way I do this is we're going to figure out some words. And I have LELOH. So that's going to be hello. This one is very easy. The second one is the easy. Appeal. Banana. Lie, smile. And then at the end, the game tells me what my score was. So similarly, in this project, I want you to ask the user for 1 word, all jumbled, and then they're going to answer, and then you're going to ask for a second one. They're going to answer again, and we're going to do this 5 times. Every time they get one right, you want to create a variable called score, and initially set score equal to 0. And if they get it right, we're going to add 1 to score. If they get it wrong, we're going to add 0 to score. And then at the end of the game, I want it similarly to how we had on the score page. I want it to say your score was, and then it gives us our results. And the solutions to this problem will be on the website under the homework section. So that concludes for the introduction to Python. These are the basics and what you'll need to start coding for Python. If you have any questions, please shoot me an email at rayyan@learnersdome.org, and we'll have more tutorials coming soon, so keep an eye out for that. Thank you for watching.